Got a call. I was going to an appointment and meeting my sister, and I saw my sister, and she said, "You have to go home." I had chills even talking.
Elvis Presley's funeral was a solemn event attended by family, friends, and devoted fans. For years, the full list of guests remained a mystery, until now. Recently uncovered details reveal every attendee who came to honor the King of Rock and Roll, including some truly unexpected names. Join us as we uncover the details of this revelation. The final curtain call of Elvis Presley. In late 1976, Elvis Presley's life took an unexpected turn. He broke up with Linda Thompson and started dating Ginger Alden in November. Within 2 months, he proposed to her, showing that he was still seeking love and stability despite his tumultuous life. However, behind the romantic facade, Presley's health and well-being were deteriorating. In the beginning of 1977, the famous Elvis Presley was losing his appeal. After years of traveling constantly, personal struggles, and relying on prescription substances, he was no longer the same. Known for his lively performances, sharp fashion sense, and captivating stage presence, he had declined significantly. His body had gained weight, and his eyes showed signs of exhaustion. Even his concerts, once exciting events, were becoming hard for fans to enjoy. During shows, he frequently couldn't remember the lyrics and had trouble maintaining his energy. In Alexandria, Louisiana, he was only able to perform for under an hour, speaking in a muddled and difficult-to-comprehend way. Shortly after, a performance in Baton Rouge had to be called off because he couldn't even get out of bed. 4 other concerts had to be rescheduled, a rare occurrence for someone who typically had a packed touring schedule. Nevertheless, despite his worsening health, Elvis continued to push himself to show up for fans who adored him deeply. Even as some began to feel disappointed seeing his struggles in person, Elvis's world was getting smaller when he wasn't on stage. He spent a lot of time in his room by himself, reading spiritual books and thinking. He still talked and laughed with his cousin Billy Smith, reminiscing about old times or quoting Monty Python sketches. But he started talking more about fears and feeling paranoid, showing the emotional burden he was carrying. In June 1977, Elvis Presley released his last single, "Way Down," while he was still alive. During that same month, CBS recorded 2 concerts for a TV special. The first concert in Omaha was difficult to watch for many as Elvis's voice sounded weak and his timing was off, with his energy fading. Just 2 days later in Rapid City, South Dakota, Elvis seemed slightly better with more strength and confidence. But the effort was evident on his face as sweat poured down his pale cheeks under his jet-black hair. His final concert took place on June 26, 1977, in Indianapolis. At the time, fans did not realize it would be the last time Elvis Presley performed for a live audience. Another setback followed soon after. A book was released on August 1 that was written by 3 of his ex-bodyguards, revealing his history of substance misuse. This publication had a profound impact on him. In an attempt to prevent its release, he attempted to bribe the publishers. Nonetheless, his efforts were in vain. His health was already in poor condition, with him suffering from glaucoma, high blood pressure, liver issues, and an enlarged colon, all increased by his reliance on medication. His final public appearance was on August 8 after midnight when he booked Libertyland Amusement Park in Memphis. With only a few friends around him, he enjoyed the rides, seeking happiness in the late hours of the night. A tragic event occurred a week later. Elvis was supposed to start a tour on August 16, beginning in Portland, Maine. However, Ginger Alden discovered him unconscious on the bathroom floor of his Graceland mansion that afternoon. Efforts to resuscitate him were unsuccessful, and he passed away at 3:30 p.m. at the age of 42, leaving the world mourning the loss of the rock and roll king.
August 16th, 1977, the day the world learned the King of Rock and Roll.
He talks about Elvis's death. The world was shocked by the news of his death. President Jimmy Carter described him as a man who had a lasting impact on American culture. People rushed to Graceland to catch a final glimpse of the legendary figure. Thousands gathered to see his open casket, but the moment was tainted by scandal when a family member secretly took a photo of his body and sold it to a tabloid. Ginger Alden went to the press with her account, but despite any love they may have had in his final months, Elvis did not leave her anything in his will. His funeral was held at Graceland on August 18. Sadly, there was another tragedy when a car crashed into fans outside the gates, resulting in the death of 2 young women and serious injuries to another person. Approximately 80,000 people lined the streets as Elvis's body was taken to Forest Hill Cemetery for burial next to his mother. However, fans never truly came to terms with the nature of his death. What was the mystery surrounding it? The mystery surrounding Elvis Presley's final hours. Elvis Presley's death came as a surprise to many and left people feeling bewildered. When news of his passing broke, it raised a lot of questions. While his fans were grieving the loss of the iconic king of rock and roll, doctors were already trying to figure out what led to his death. An autopsy was started shortly after he passed away, but even before it was finished, Memphis medical examiner Jerry Francisco made a shocking announcement. He said that Elvis passed away of a heart attack and insisted that illegal substances were not a factor in his death.
And I looked at the foot of the bed and saw Dr. Nicopolis, who was pacing there at the foot of the bed, and I thought, wow, that looks like Elvis's doctor.
He talks about Dr. Nicopolis. However, that statement was not the complete truth. In fact, the people performing the autopsy were looking into different possibilities. Some believed that Elvis could have had a strong allergic reaction to codeine pills prescribed by his dentist, a medication he was known to have a mild allergy to. Others were concerned about something more serious, polypharmacy, which occurs when multiple substances are in the body simultaneously, potentially affecting each other in harmful ways. 2 months after his death, lab tests revealed that Elvis had a total of 14 illegal substances in his system, with 10 of them present in high levels. In 1979, forensic pathologist Cyril Wecht studied the evidence and determined that a combination of depressants caused his accidental demise. Another expert, forensic historian Michael Baden, pointed out that Elvis had an enlarged heart, which when combined with his extensive substance use, made him very susceptible. The situation was not straightforward, as it involved both ongoing health problems and risky behaviors. The way in which the situation was dealt with drew even more attention. Francisco declared the cause of death before the autopsy, which is not typical in medicine. He stated that the cause was cardiac arrhythmia, a condition that can only be diagnosed in a living person. His immediate dismissal of illegal substances before toxicology results also led to suspicions of a cover-up. The controversy surrounding Elvis continued even after his death. In 1981, his doctor, George C. Nicopolis, faced legal action.
And I looked at the foot of the bed and saw Dr. Nicopolis, who was pacing there at the foot of the bed, and I thought, wow, that looks like Elvis's doctor.
He talks about Dr. Nicopolis. Although he was not charged with a crime, the details were alarming. Just in the first 8 months of 1977, he issued over 10,000 prescriptions of sedatives, amphetamines, and narcotics under Elvis's name. Despite maintaining his medical license initially, it was suspended for 3 months. Eventually, in the 1990s, the Tennessee Medical Board permanently revoked his license due to excessive prescribing. In 1994, the autopsy report was looked at again. A coroner named Joseph Davis reviewed the information and determined that the cause of death was likely a sudden heart attack, not substance-related. However, not everyone agreed with this conclusion during the first examination. The other pathologists in the team were careful and hesitant to come to any conclusions until all the test results were in. Eric Muirhead, in particular, was surprised when Francisco made a decision without consensus from the team. The thorough analysis of Elvis's body revealed that he had multiple long-term health issues such as diabetes, glaucoma, and severe constipation. Additionally, there were indications on his body that suggested a long history of substance misuse, which was confirmed by his medical records showing 2 instances of substance detox and methadone treatment in the past. The truth surrounding Elvis Presley's death is unclear due to conflicting opinions, reports, and unanswered questions. Some think his death was due to long-term health issues, while others believe it was caused by his dependence on prescription substances. It's definite that Elvis had suffered from years of illness and strain on his body from both natural diseases and substances meant to help him. Despite all these mysteries, Elvis's burial sparked fresh discussion. The day the world stood still at Graceland. On a hot summer day in Memphis, Tennessee, Graceland became the center of the nation's sorrow. It was August 18, 1977, just 2 days after Elvis Presley passed away, and the large grounds of his beloved mansion had become a place of grief. Instead of representing Elvis's lively life, the mansion now served as a quiet reminder of his memory. The air was thick with both the summer heat and the combined smell of many flowers sent by fans from around the world. The well-known front gates, usually adorned with playful musical notes, were covered in black fabric, looking somber. The vibrant green lawn where Elvis used to have fun playing football with his friends from Memphis was now filled with colorful floral arrangements, standing out against the overall quietness. The rooms in the mansion, which were once filled with music, laughter, and late-night jam sessions, were now silent. The only sounds that could be heard were the soft cries of mourners and quiet words of sympathy. Devoted fans stood outside the gates, keeping watch. Some held candles, while others listened to Elvis's favorite songs on transistor radios.
And each August, thousands of fans continue to flock to Memphis to remember the legendary performer's life and legacy.
She talks about fans' reaction to Elvis's death. It seemed like the world had stopped, hoping against all odds that the king would come back. Seeing familiar faces of fellow musicians, actors, and friends made the reality even more painful. This gathering wasn't a show or a concert. It was a final goodbye to the boy from Tupelo who left a lasting impact on music. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, was at the center of the sadness. He appeared both strong and vulnerable, struggling with his grief. Tears welled up in his eyes as he attempted to express his appreciation to the people who had reached out with letters, flowers, and kind words from around the world. He admitted that these gestures of love had provided some comfort during the most difficult moments. However, beneath his composed demeanor, he was a father who was suffering deeply from the loss. Vernon later said that the day seemed to go by quickly, and he felt overwhelmed by shock and sadness. He did not even recognize some of the people who came to show their sympathy, including friends and other celebrities. He remembered hugging his friend Margaret and crying with her, but he did not notice her husband Roger standing nearby. This small detail said a lot. It depicted a man consumed by sadness to the point where everything around him seemed unclear. The people, the flowers, the music, the whispers, all merged into the backdrop of his sorrow. Vernon had supported his son through all the highs and lows, but now he was dealing with a silence that couldn't be filled. On that day, Graceland was more than just a house. It was a safe place for those with broken hearts. The quietness of the house represented the sadness of millions who were grieving the loss of the king, even though they would never see him again. The final walk. When it was time to bury Elvis Presley, the responsibility of carrying his casket fell on the men who had been by his side through thick and thin. The moment was filled with sorrow and affection. Leading the way was George Klein, Elvis's friend from high school, who had become one of his closest allies. Beside him was Joe Esposito, a loyal member of the Memphis Mafia, with a look of surprise as he carried not just the casket, but also the weight of their long-lasting friendship. Jerry Schilling and Billy Smith, who were both relatives of Elvis and close friends, held onto the handles tightly, their knuckles turning pale with emotion. Gene Smith, another relative, walked alongside them, followed closely by Dr. George Nichopoulos, also known as Dr. Nick, Elvis's personal doctor, whose connection to him was not only professional but also deeply personal. These men were not just pallbearers, but also important parts of Elvis's life, connected to him through memories and loyalty. However, the casket bearers were not the only ones feeling sad. The chapel and the area surrounding Graceland were filled with people who were once a part of Elvis's life. J.D. Sumner, a tall and dignified man known for his deep bass voice in the Stamps Quartet, stood quietly, showing a different side of himself in a moment of solemnity. Charlie Hodge, who was always by Elvis's side on stage and handling guitars, appeared disoriented without the usual routine of getting ready for a performance. Kathy Westmoreland, the singer with a sweet voice that sang with Elvis, was silent and sad. Lamar Fike, a member of Elvis's close group, was unusually quiet and looked devastated. Also present were the musicians who were with Elvis at the beginning of his career. Scotty Moore, the guitarist, and DJ Fontana, the drummer, stood next to each other in quiet contemplation. Their eyes appeared to look back in time to when they played at clubs and helped create a legend. But Elvis's father wasn't the only one at the funeral. Several notable guests were also in attendance. When legends came to say goodbye. Throughout the day, Graceland transformed from being just the residence of a famous musician to being a setting for a remarkable event in entertainment history. Not only were family and fans allowed entry, but also a special group of Hollywood stars, prominent musicians, and political leaders who were brought together by the loss of this man. Anne Margaret was one of the first famous people to arrive at the event. She was in a movie with Elvis Presley and they were close friends. They danced together in Viva Las Vegas and had great chemistry on screen. Years later, she was at the event with her husband Roger Smith. She moved gracefully through the crowd and her eyes showed that she had many memories with Elvis both on and off screen. Caroline Kennedy made a surprising and impressive appearance. She is the daughter of former President John F. Kennedy, so her being there connected the worlds of politics and entertainment. Her presence showed that Elvis's influence went beyond just music and movies, impacting all aspects of American culture. Next up was James Brown, known as the Godfather of Soul, and a huge figure in the music industry. While they had friendly competition during their careers, Brown's presence at the event showed the deep respect they had for each other. Both men were pioneers in music, each with their unique style, now coming together in a moment of shared farewell. George Hamilton, a well-groomed actor who was close friends with Elvis in Hollywood, entered with a calm expression. Their friendship was based on loyalty rather than fame, and Hamilton's presence showed their strong connection beyond glamorous events. Sammy Davis Jr. came next, his name representing talent and strength. He was famous for being part of the Rat Pack and for his efforts in breaking racial barriers in showbiz. Davis's presence served as a reminder of Elvis's ability to connect different cultures and races during a time of great division. John Wayne, also known as the Duke, quietly attended a private event. Despite being very different in terms of their careers, the tough cowboy and the charismatic rock star both admired each other greatly. On that day, a unique gathering took place at Graceland, with people from different fields coming together to say goodbye to Elvis Presley. This included actors, musicians, politicians, and friends, each with their special memories of the man. It was evident that Elvis's impact went beyond just his fans and that his legacy, like his music, would never fade away. But what kind of relationship did Elvis keep? Elvis and the bond that shaped his sound. When Dewey Phillips first played That's All Right on Memphis's WHBQ, the phones were ringing off the hook with excited callers requesting to hear it again. Many of those listeners assumed the singer was black because of the energy, rhythm, and soul in the voice, which was unexpected from a young white singer in the South. Elvis Presley, from the very start of his journey to stardom, displayed a great admiration for African-American musicians and their music. In a time when racial discrimination and segregation were still prevalent in the South, Elvis stood out for his openness and respect towards a culture that many white performers tended to overlook. Elvis Presley was captivated by blues music as a kid. He was inspired by Arthur Crudup, who recorded That's All Right, and admired how Crudup performed. Elvis believed that if he could capture the emotion in Crudup's music, he would be a unique performer. This was more than just words. His music style, voice, and passion reflected his love for blues and gospel music from his childhood. He followed through on what he said. During a time when segregation was legal, Elvis pushed against the barriers. For instance, he went to a local amusement park on a night designated for black people, going against the norms of society at the time. This gesture, although seemingly small, held great significance for the black community in Memphis. At the start of his career, black newspapers praised him for being a link between different groups, showing respect for the origins of the music he performed. Many white adults did not like Elvis because they thought he was dangerous and indecent, and blamed him for influencing young people. Some of this disapproval stemmed from prejudice because rock and roll originated from black musical traditions, and Elvis introduced that sound to new audiences. Those who were not willing to confront their biases found Elvis to be an easy person to criticize. In 1957, a harmful rumor started circulating claiming that Elvis had made a derogatory comment about black people only being able to buy his records and shine his shoes. Jet magazine decided to look into the matter and sent journalist Louis Robinson to investigate. While on the set of Jailhouse Rock, Elvis personally denied ever making such a statement and pointed out that rock and roll had been around before his time, crediting black artists like Fats Domino for their talent. Robinson was unable to find any evidence to support the rumor, and in fact, several musicians, including blues singer Ivory Joe Hunter, had positive things to say about Elvis, praising him for his kindness and respect towards them. The rumor continued for a long time, due to the fact that Elvis became famous and rich for a type of music that many black musicians had created but never got credit for. Some people said he took black music. However, others, such as singer Jackie Wilson, supported him by explaining that many black artists took performance techniques from Elvis. During his career, Elvis talked openly about the people who inspired him. During his 1968 comeback special, he told the audience that rock and roll came from gospel and rhythm and blues. Almost 10 years before that, he mentioned that the music had been around for a long time, but was called rhythm and blues. He believed in spreading the happiness and soul of the music with as many people as he could, rather than claiming ownership of the sound. However, amidst these attendees, there were faces the world never expected to see at Elvis's funeral. Guests the world never expected to see. The gathering focused on people who knew Elvis as a beloved man, not just a famous musician. They were openly grieving his loss. Priscilla Presley stood by her young daughter, Lisa Marie, who was only 9 years old and experiencing a heartbreaking pain. Lisa Marie held on to her mother for comfort, showing that even though she couldn't fully comprehend the loss, she was a living symbol of Elvis's legacy. Lisa Marie's features resembled her father's, as if a part of him lived on in her. Colonel Tom Parker, who managed Elvis for a long time, was close to them. He was the one who pushed Elvis's career forward with determination and ambition. Without Elvis, he appeared lost and diminished. His face showed a mix of sadness and doubt, as if he was just starting to understand the permanent loss of not just the famous singer, but also the person behind the music. Ginger Alden, the woman who was engaged to Elvis when he passed away, was among the mourners. She was the one who discovered him on that tragic day. The memory of finding him seemed to haunt her with every breath she took. Her eyes were red from crying, hinting at a future without him, and dreams of a wedding that would never happen. The life she had envisioned with him disappeared suddenly, leaving her with a profound sense of loss and loneliness. Linda Thompson, who used to date Elvis, added to the story of love and heartbreak. Her being there with Priscilla and Ginger showed the strong connection Elvis had with the people he loved. It showed that no matter what had happened in the past, Elvis had a lasting impact on those he cared about. Minnie Mae Presley, Elvis's grandmother, was sitting in a peaceful corner. She was 89 years old and had already experienced the deaths of her son Vernon and now her grandson. Her frail body and aged face showed the sadness of many generations. Seeing her was like witnessing history in mourning, as she had survived so much loss. A close-knit group of people who loved Elvis were gathered together. Each person had their unique story and connection to him, but as a group, they represented a united front in their grief. While the world saw Elvis as a musical legend, to them, he was like family. Despite his music living on for years to come, they were reminded on that day of the void left by his absence, which no song could ever replace. The Presley family's eternal reunion. During Elvis Presley's funeral, sorrow was palpable as Vernon Presley, a man burdened by work and challenges, stood tearfully speaking about reuniting with his son in the afterlife. His emotional words resonated deeply with those listening, conveying a sense of unbearable loss and longing for his departed child. The words seemed like a prediction, but sadly, they came true. Only 2 years later, on June 26, 1979, Vernon Presley passed away. Some thought his death was not just due to health problems, but also because of a broken heart. He had watched his son go from a small home in Tupelo, Mississippi, to the opulent halls of Graceland. He had supported him through the highs and lows of fame, always being there for him. When Elvis passed away, his father lost his reason for living. The center of his world was no longer there. It's difficult not to think about what happened after death. It's nice to imagine Vernon being reunited with Elvis and Gladys in heaven. Elvis would probably be there in one of his famous white jumpsuits, ready to embrace his father. Gladys Presley, Elvis's loving mother who passed away early, would also be there. The three of them would finally be reunited and complete again. Maybe they would gather around a piano, like they used to in Memphis, listening to the comforting sound of gospel music. Elvis would play the piano effortlessly, singing with the same heartfelt passion as before. Gladys and Vernon would join in with their harmonies, creating that familiar family sound. There wouldn't be any cameras, tour buses, or pressures from the outside world. It would just be a family, united by love, without the burden of fame. The picture is heartfelt, yet also a mix of both happiness and sadness. The Presley family was divided due to fate and the constant demands of being famous. However, they eventually found peace by staying united, where nothing could ever come between them again. When we remember Elvis, we often think about his famous music, energetic live performances, and influence on culture. He revolutionized music with his moves in the 1950s and his shows in Vegas during the 1970s. However, his most important impact might have been how he connected with his fans on a personal level. The legend who never truly left, Elvis Presley, had a remarkable life story that seemed like it was too good to be true. He went from being a poor boy in Mississippi to becoming one of the most well-known men worldwide, living out the American dream in a spectacular way. His voice, fashion sense, and charisma helped him rise from modest beginnings to achieving fame on a global scale. She talks about Elvis's impact.
60 years ago, Elvis Presley captivated the world with his chart-topping records, TV appearances, and a first Hollywood movie. And each August, thousands of fans
However, as time went on, the shine of his dream started to fade. In his last years, the man who appeared invincible became just as famous for his excessive behavior as he was for his music. Elvis always enjoyed the traditional food from the South. He loved comforting meals like chicken fried steak, biscuits with gravy, and rich, buttery dishes. His favorite indulgence was the fried peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwich. This treat was a mix of sweet, salty, and rich flavors that epitomized Elvis. It eventually became a symbol of his extravagant lifestyle and how he lived to the fullest. When Elvis passed away in 1977, there was a lot of sadness around the world, but some people found it difficult to believe he was gone. Rumors started spreading that he was alive and living in hiding. People claimed they saw him at airports, gas stations, and walking on the streets. Some thought these stories were funny, while others truly believed them. As time passed, fewer people believed in these sightings, but the idea never completely went away. Even without these stories, people still feel Elvis's influence. Fans everywhere create small memorials in their homes with photos, records, and keepsakes displayed lovingly. They travel to locations connected to him like Graceland, his cherished residence. Each year on the day he passed away, thousands come together for a candlelit vigil. In the gentle light, strangers stand side by side, bonded by their adoration for a man who had a lasting impact on the music industry. For many people, Elvis is more than just a singer. He is revered like a saint, with his music, image, and story still being celebrated today. Fans believe that Elvis will always be remembered as a legend who lives on eternally. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.